Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 82 with Rohan Ramanna. I had a great conversation with Rohan. He really shared a lot. He's had a wild journey and he shared it with me. Lots of takeaways, lots of lessons. He talks about why getting shipped off to boarding school was a major blessing for him, an inside look at India's industrious music and film scene, how he's been able to pick himself up from the bottom multiple times, the differences between scoring for film versus song production, mixing on headphones. We talked about so many things, so let's just get into it. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Rohan Ramanna. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Rohan Ramanna. Rohan is a music producer, recording engineer, multi-instrumentalist, and entrepreneur. He was a founding partner at India's Cotton Press Studio and was one half of the songwriting / production duo Nicholson / Lands. He has toured both within India and internationally, playing his own material as well as being a session drummer. He is one of the founding members of the Salvage Audio Collective, a production team operating out of Mumbai's Island City Studios, credited with much acclaimed and award-winning music for movies such as Gully Boy, OTT movies such as Ye Ballet, Guilty on Netflix, and many more. Apart from his touring schedule, he has actively been composing, producing, mixing, and mastering music for television, film, radio, as well as independent musicians and bands for over a decade. Former guest of the show, Arnab Ball, recommended I reach out to Rohan, who has graciously agreed to join me on the show. So welcome to Secret Sonics, Rohan.
Hi, Ben. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm honored that you joined me on the show. I was checking out the music you sent me before we jumped on the call, and there's just some really cool stuff happening in India.
I can attest to that, and I'm really grateful to I guess be part of some of it.
Yeah, no, the stuff you sent me sounds amazing. So tell me a bit about your story. Who are you? When did music become a thing for you? How did that evolve into music production? What's your story?
I guess I could start from the beginning because music is something that has run, I guess you could say, in my family. My grandfather, he was a hobbyist Western classical piano player. And he was super diligent about, practicing every day. And whenever we'd go and fly to the city he'd live in, I'd witness him waking up at 6 a.m. every day and just practicing Chopin for 2 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, it was incredible. And this is when he was like 70 years old. And my parents told me he did that since he was, 9 years old or something. So it was just like incredible. Like he could sight read anything. And I guess like my first introduction into music was the piano and just watching my grandfather play. So, parents being parents, they're like, they try to get my brother and me into studying classical piano. And, at the age of 3, that's just like not what you want to do. I really despised it, and it kind of turned me off music for a few years until I think I discovered Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was really big in India, and I think it was the early 90s, and I remember just getting my hands on the first cassette that I can remember, and it was Bad by Michael Jackson, and that really sparked something in my brain, at a really young age. And my dad was a fanatic, tried to be a musician at a young age, but back in the 70s in India, there was no independent music. It was just like a handful of bands that really struggled to make ends meet, so to speak. He later became a filmmaker, but and did a ton of like commercial films and like advertisements and things like that. So he always had like musicians come home. He used to work from home. And I just remember as a kid waking up and like walking out into my dad's workspace and seeing like a Kurzweil synthesizer. I had no idea what it did, but it made these really cool sounds. And then I saw this big black box, which was, I guess, a Roland sampler. So you'd have a lot of like composers come by and like create the jingles for the ads that he'd make. So I guess like I was
Very cool.
always like around production gear, not knowing that,
Hmm.
oh, this does this, or I was just like, yeah, exposed to it at a young age. And I remember seeing my dad had a guitar. I picked it up one day. I'm like, Dad, what's this? I broke all the strings. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to get you your own guitar. Tried to learn guitar at like the age of 7 and just wasn't in it. Like I guess like now looking back, I realized that like the person teaching me wasn't really so happy teaching, like he wasn't really into it. So it was hard to get like his students into it, it was. And this was back in the early 90s in India, which like music was pretty much all associated with like film music. Like Bollywood
Yeah.
was a huge thing, and like there was, like I said, not much of an independent music scene. So yeah, I mean, like most of the music teachers were pretty disgruntled back then, at least the ones I had. So at the age of 10, my dad kind of like packed up and left India. He's just like he was kind of fed up with just the work culture here. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of exploitation. There's just like people going back on contracts. It was the Wild West in the 90s, and he was trying to keep really professional, and his business was doing well. Like he kind of created the first animation studio in India, and like they ended up creating films for Lionsgate and stuff like that. So really successful
Wow.
for a period of time. And at that time when my dad left, like my brother and I, who's just like a year and 2 months older than I am, we were kind of sent to Singapore for about 8 years. And we were kind
Whoa.
of, yeah, we just grew up in a boarding school. And we were surrounded by like kids of all nationalities. It was an international school, just the greatest music department. Like I was blown away. Like until the age of 10, like music education in India, I mean, it's in school, like it was just like standing around with like kids and singing hymns. Like I went to like an all boys Catholic school. You know?
Oh,
so
wow.
so yeah, so like and this is before like the internet was really big. Like I remember this was 97 or 98, and like Napster just came out like the first year I moved to Singapore, and that was like things exploded. Like my exposure to music just went crazy. And coming from India, where like it was difficult to get really good music lessons, going to a place where like my guitar teacher was the rhythm guitar player for Bo Diddley for many years. Like he toured with him, and like my
Wow.
brother's bass teacher was a sessions guy for Stevie Wonder, like this guy Christy Smith, like all these guys from like Compton and Canada, and like it was just crazy. It was going from like singing hymns to like, hey, do you want to learn a Eddie Van Halen song today? And I was just like, yeah, like this is amazing. So it was just, it was an explosion of joy, an epiphany. It's just like at the age of 10, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like it's just music, and I didn't really study like the other subjects and stuff like that. I was just like so into music at such a young age. And because I grew up in a boarding school, like I had like roommates. Like I've just had roommates who were really into music as well. We started playing in bands. We were terrible. It's like really, really bad, but we just loved it. Like it didn't matter.
You got to start somehow, right?
Exactly. And then, I mean, because the school in Singapore was so good, like they had like symphonic orchestras for kids. Like they had like, the big band stuff. Like I played in a swing big band, like just studying, sucked at that. I love jazz. Like that kind of showed me how bad I was at music, because everyone in the class, like there was like a 30-piece ensemble and everyone could sight read. I mean, like, yeah, there were kids from all over the world, and like people who've had music education from really young ages, like I was super surprised to see that a lot of my Korean friends, a lot of my friends from China, Malaysia, Indonesia, they had great music education growing up, and they could sight read and like, just hang, with a big band. And that was something that was an eye opener. It just made me look back and realize that, yeah, music education, well, Western musical education in India, it was really just not happening back in the day, man. Like it was terrible.
Wow.
But at the same time, it made me realize that holy crap, like I'm so fortunate to actually get this education. And yeah, I loved it. I mean, after Singapore, I went to university at Penn State in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is the second
Oh.
most snowy city I realized in the whole of the United States. And I didn't pack warm at all. I was just like, I didn't really want to go to college because my parents were like, no, you can't study music because, musicians in India don't really go anywhere. So you need a backup plan. You're going to study something, and I just picked business management because it was just whatever, it's just like, all right, I'm out of here. Yeah, I mean, like I'd hardly go to class at university. Like I basically took all the money my parents gave me to eat for the whole semester, and I bought like a mixer. I bought like a really crappy Tascam sound card. I remember like it was the 1421. That thing just came out. It was terrible back in the day.
Yeah.
And I had some like knowledge of using like a Fostex cassette, 4-track recorder because my dad had one hanging out when I was a kid. So I kind of understood like, all right, this is how you overdub stuff, and like just really getting into it, not being trained by anyone or anything like that, just reading a lot of books about it and stuff like that. I was living in this really dingy house in the ghetto in the city I was living in, and it was a scary place. Like, but at the same time, like we could be as loud as we wanted to 24/7. Like the cops would just never show up. So we throw ragers and like have concerts in our basement. And I try to record them. They sound like crap because I had no like real knowledge of like phase and stuff like that. It was great. Like I feel like that's where I learned, just how to record a band and like how to edit stuff. And it was good. It was great. And finally I graduated and I came back to India, and I didn't know anyone. Like it was a bit depressing because I went from such a vibrant music scene and playing with like such incredible musicians, like just playing gigs at bars and stuff like that. It was great.
Yeah.
And coming back to like something that, our independent music scene was just beginning. Like we got our first real like sound treated venue when I moved back. So they were getting a lot of big artists like Herbie Hancock and stuff to come down and like play at this venue. So it was a new beginning, and I felt like I came back at the right time. Sorry if I'm going on too long. Please feel free to
No, it's awesome.
this.
Wait, what year is this that you come back?
I came back in 2009. I remember. So yeah,
I feel like we're the same age because I graduated college in 2009 as well.
Oh yeah, we might be.
Maybe we might be. Nice.
I came back. I had this like business degree that I knew I didn't want to do anything, and I was just like I was living with my mom at the time because my dad was living in Thailand, and this is, I mean, he moved in '97, so he's been there for quite some time,
Wow.
Yeah. So my mom was just like, so what do you want to do? Like, like I can, maybe try and like call one of my old colleagues from work and see if you can, hit up some studios and get some experience and stuff like that. So I was just like, by all means, please, up. I just spent 4 years getting a degree that, I just really did not enjoy. So, I mean, I took her up on that offer. I got like basically the equivalent to a T-boy job at just so happened to be one of the most busy studios in Bombay. And straight from day one, they expected me to be in for 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. First one in, last one out. I mean, like, like working in a studio in India is a recipe for disaster. I realized in 6 months that I was just like, I would probably be dead if I continued to do that. And my boss at the time had been doing that for 9 years, and even though he was working with simply the best producers and, like composers for film in the whole of India, like he'd had such great experiences. Like it turned out like his work hours were so long, it affected his health really badly. Like, so he actually got a precursor to cancer. And, at the age of 29, he's like, man, I quit. Like, so he just packed up and left. I think he went to like just get treatment. I mean, it was an eye opener for me because I realized how messed up that whole like